This is the unit on perspective. So we're going to look, 6th grade looked at vanishing point. So this is vanishing point, but it is taking the vanishing point to another level of 1 point perspective. So we're going to do this step by step, and this is in your resources in your Google Classroom. So the first thing that we need to do in our sketchbooks is we need to draw a horizontal line on our paper. Just so simple. And then around the center of that, we're going to put our vanishing point. Okay, so I'm going to take my time and do this, but what we're going to do is 3 squares on the top of the line. Give yourself some space. And 3 triangles on the bottom of the line. So I'm going to take my time and get that done neatly. You work on yours, and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, so I have my 3 squares, my 3 triangles done. It is almost imperative that you use a ruler for the straight edges. I didn't measure anything, but I did want them all approximately the same size. You can tell they're not. That wasn't my goal here. But I did want them to have pretty decent straight edges on them for this assignment. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, let me erase that real quick, is you're going to use your straight edge and you're going to draw from these 3 corners to the vanishing point. So lining up very carefully. I know it's very hard to see. I will lift my straight edge in just a moment. All right, so there is my 3 lines from the corner, these 3 corners, to the vanishing point. Now, if I did this corner, it would just overlap that line, so that's why that's not necessary. All right, and yes, I see that it's a little off right there. Perfectly okay for this exercise. So now we're going to take this square and do the same thing to the vanishing points. I'll take care of that, come back and show you. Okay, so I only did these 2 corners because anything here would be showing as in front of the box. We want the boxes to look like they're coming at us in perspective going back to the vanishing point. So for this one here, we're going to use this corner, and this corner. So I'll do that and then I'll be right back. All right, so for this one, as you can see, I used the 3 outer corners and I drew the diagonals to the vanishing point. That one's very light, but you can see it. All right, so there I have my 3 cubes, squares turned into cubes. Now, what you want to do next is take your straight edge, and it doesn't matter how far down you come, but you're going to do a parallel line to that bottom, just right in here, in between those diagonal lines. Now, wherever this point is, right here, you're going to put your straight edge and you're going to draw a line parallel to this line. Now you really have a point perspective cube, okay? So let's go ahead and do this one over here together. And you can make it more narrow. I'm going to draw a line in between these 2 diagonals, parallel, and then I'm going to come where this point hits the center diagonal and draw parallel to the other diagonal. I'm going to go ahead and thicken this up so you can see it better. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to experiment with this one right here because if you're looking straight at it do we still need to have a parallel line? Let me work on that. Come right back. All right, I wanted to make sure that I had that correct. So this right here, you see the bottom side of that cube, you see the bottom side of that cube, and you see the bottom side of that cube. You see the side of this cube. You do not see the sides of this because it's directly coming at you. And here you see this side of the cube, but not that side. None of them do you see the tops with this type of perspective. So I want for you to go ahead and work on the 3 triangles using the same concept. I'm going to work on the first one, I'll show you, and then I'm going to let you do the other 2. All right, so for this one, I took the 2 points over here. This one would just be right down the center, but we want it looking 3-dimensional. So I took this point and used my straight edge to go to the vanishing point. And then I took my straight edge and went parallel to give the side of the box. Go ahead and do the next 2. That center one might be a little bit tricky, but let's see how it comes out. Okay, do these next 2. All right, so I chose this top point and bottom point to draw my lines to the vanishing point. And here I chose this point and this point. And I came back in and made my parallel lines. This is really important to make sure these lines are parallel. These lines and these lines are parallel to each other because that is what's going to give that dimensional look. So I'm going to come back in a moment after I outline and erase so that it looks even clearer to what the object of the lesson was. All right, so I did not erase the lines that led up to how I did this lesson, but I did outline the shapes that now look very much like Star Wars coming at you. Great animation. But I also took some of my colored pencils and used the value idea with lighter because it's closer to me, and then darker as it's going back towards the vanishing point, just to give it a little bit of oomph. It'd be nice before you take a picture and turn this in if you go ahead and color all of those. But we're going to move on to the next part of the perspective project, and it is going to be a city street. All right, this printout, step by step, is also in your resources. So I am going to do this step by step because it's very hard to draw under the camera. So I may pause between each one, and I think that will help me do a much better job than trying to draw under the camera. So the first step, I think I'm going to do both of these at the same time before I break, is the horizontal line, and the vanishing point is not in the center. It is off to the side a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do my horizon line, my off-center vanishing point, and my diagonals, and notice they come from the bottom of the page to the vanishing point, not from the side up. So keep your diagonals coming from the bottom of your sheet and not up towards the top. And I think I am going to use my paper horizontally instead of vertically, because I think that that will give me more room, and I'm taking a cue from this worksheet. These worksheets came from, I cannot read it. I'll have to look it up to make sure I give the proper credit. It's right there, just can't read it right this moment. So anyway, I'm going to get finished with steps 1 and 2, and then I'll be right back. All right, so very good. You have your horizon line, your vanishing point off center, and you have diagonal lines that go off the bottom of your page and not the sides. Both of those, bottom of the page, not the sides. Okay, the next step is going to be drawing a rectangle in this area of the paper. You do want to use a straight edge, not necessarily for measuring, but you definitely want to use a straight edge. This rectangle is going to start about right here, and it's going to be about through the midsection of the upper part. This is going to be the sky. This is going to be the earth, the land. So I will show you. And I am drawing lightly. I don't know if it's going to be perfectly vertical, but, and then I'm going to come over here. And I'm doing very lightly. I want to make sure I can erase. And for a rectangle, it would have 4 sides, not 2. So there's the top. And then the bottom, I'm going to extend it a little bit. Let's see, right there. I want it touching that line. I'll show you. I wanted it touching there. And then I come back with my handy dandy eraser and erase anything I don't want. Okay, I don't want that. That looks good. That extended. That went over. And I do not want this line through the middle. So all of that is erased. So take just a moment and get that done. And then the next step is going to be to do another diagonal. All right, once you have your rectangle drawn, you're going to take the top closest to the vanishing point angle, and you are going to, it's so hard to see. I'm lining up. From the top corner to the vanishing point. So take a moment, get that done, and I shall be right back. Very good, we're getting there. So the next thing we're going to do, just like the cubes a moment ago, is we're going to do a parallel line this direction. And when I say that, I'm going to make sure that I don't want to do it too wide. I'm going to do a parallel line from this last line we did, this last vanishing point, down to this diagonal. So from one diagonal to the other, just like that. Very good, very good, very good. And then of course we want to erase. That's the biggest reason we draw lightly. You never know what's going to be there and then going to be gone. Very good. So now we have a rectangular prism in our picture. So go ahead and get that done. Don't outline or color anything yet. We have a lot more to do. Alrighty, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to erase what we don't need, this diagonal right here, because that was for that rectangle. Okay, so we still have this one, we still have this one, we still have our horizon, and we still have our point. Now for this one, we're going to draw another rectangle, and we're going to have it come off of this point right here, and let's make it about this wide down to the diagonal. Let me go ahead and I think I'll make it a little bit shorter. Okay, so I did bring it down a little bit. Okay, and we're going to make sure it's parallel to this line, straight down. Straight down. And now we're going to take this corner, just like we did this one, we're going to take this corner and we're going to connect it I'm going to erase this so that it looks a little bit better, so you can maybe see so many lines. And then we're going to take and make a parallel line here. I think I'll make it more narrow. I don't want fat buildings. All right. So now we have two rectangular prisms side by side. Oh, I forgot one big thing. If this is the length of this building, then from this point over, we need to have a parallel. And that makes bottom of this other building. That helps. Now remember, this is in your resources, okay? So far we are about right here on this step, okay? So we're moving on to this one, and we are going to add some details to the building. Actually, I just correct myself, we're about right here. So we're going to add, even the doors have to be on the perspective to the vanishing point. So to do a door, we're going to do another rectangle parallel to here. Try to keep it in proportion to the building. Parallel. 2 parallel lines from that diagonal. And then we're going to take it to our vanishing point. To make our doorway. If it doesn't look right the first time you do it, just do it again. Now, on the side of the building, we're going to put some windows, but since they're facing, they don't need to be drawn to the vanishing point like all of these other items do. So even right here, I'll go back and put the line for you to see. That right there even went to the vanishing point to get the top of the door. And I'll come back and erase that on my own time. So I'm going to let you catch up to this. Remember, you can pause anytime you want to. Look at your resource. And then I'm going to do my windows, and we'll come back and show you how to do a sidewalk. And then I'll let you do whatever you want to on the other side. All right, to catch up and touch base, I did several windows on this side, which are just straight on. They're not at the vanishing point because we're looking at the building as we are walking. So this is facing directly to us. We're seeing the sides of these buildings right here. So anyway, this one is also face on. So we're seeing the front of the building as we go. I guess technically it's the side of the building as we go. Here would be the front facing the street. So I went ahead, and to get this window here, I just put my ruler on the vanishing point and I drew a line. Then I rotated it up, keeping it on the vanishing point, and I drew another line, and then I connected them to look like windows. Once again, use your resources. Now, we're also going to do a sidewalk. So we're going to, we don't want to do a sidewalk way out here that wide. We want a narrow sidewalk. So we're going to make sure we're at our vanishing point at the top. And we're going to draw all the way down. Little sidewalk in front of our building. Now the lines need to be parallel to the paper. So we could actually use our straight edge at the bottom, parallel to the bottom of the paper. So we could just move up our paper as we go along. Okay, but they're also going to get smaller as we go because they're in between the two diagonal lines. I'm going to just skip a little bit faster, and then I'll come back on my own time. All right, so you can see that the lines get smaller, and then if I come in, remaining parallel to the bottom of the paper, horizontal, you can add as many or as few as you would like to. So we have done a wonderful one-point perspective. Why don't we see what you can come up with on this side? That's what I'm going to do, and then we'll come back together and see what we have done to complete the picture. This is a great start using our resource. So now it's up to you to either add some more buildings over here, maybe something over here. I've seen pictures with trees. I've seen pictures with power lines. So let's see what you can come up with. All right, so I decided to put trees on this side, and I have a lot more work to do, and I know when I color them, they'll look more like trees and less like a chaotic mess. But let's see what you can come up with. Take a picture of it, turn it in, and we will be finished with your 1-point perspective for your second lesson in space. So here is a finished colored 1-point perspective. Everything's colored. I tried to use basically things from my color wheel, and then I used different shades of that, different hues of that. So anyway, did the trees. Everything goes back to the vanishing point. Submit your work. Love this. This has been a lot of fun. So we will talk to you about the ending project.